Dr. Michael Chen had performed 1,847 transplant surgeries in 23 years without a single preventable error. He'd saved lives in 14 countries, trained surgeons on 4 continents, and held the highest success rate of any transplant surgeon in North America. But on November 18, 2019, at 11:47 p.m., one decision would haunt him for the rest of his life. Not because it was wrong, but because it was right. Not because he failed his ethics, but because he followed them perfectly. Sometimes the worst mistakes we make are the ones where we do everything correctly. The call came at 11:47 p.m. Chen was reviewing charts when his pager buzzed. Code blue. Transplant wing. 2 status 1A patients. 1 heart. Michael Chen had grown up in San Francisco's Chinatown, the son of immigrants who worked 16-hour days at a laundromat. His father had taught him 2 things: work twice as hard and never compromise what's right. At 46, Chen was chief of transplant surgery at Stanford Medical Center, with 1,847 successful surgeries and a reputation that drew patients from across the globe. Tonight, those principles would collide with reality. But tonight, politics would try to own him. Chen pushed through the transplant wing doors at midnight. Dr. Sarah Kim met him, her face pale. Patient 1, William Harrison, 61, dilated cardiomyopathy. Status 1A for 6 days. MELD score 34. Chen knew the name. Everyone did. William Harrison, tech billionaire, founder of Harrison Industries, worth $12 billion. But more importantly, his foundation had funded cancer research, built schools across Africa, provided clean water to millions. A man who'd pledged his fortune to charity. Patient 2, David Reyes, 34, viral cardiomyopathy, status 1A for 2 days, MELD score 38. Chen scanned the file. Elementary school teacher, married to Maria, 2 children, Sophia, 6, and Miguel, 4. Basic insurance. A virus had destroyed his heart in 2 weeks. 1 donor heart, perfect match for both. ETA 45 minutes. In pure medical terms, the answer was clear. Reyes was younger, higher MELD scores, better projected outcomes. UNOS protocols were explicit. Medical need determined allocation, not money or fame. But Chen knew what was happening in administration right now. Chen visited Harrison first. The billionaire was in bed, oxygen mask on, tubes everywhere. His wife Catherine sat beside him, their daughter Emma by the window. Dr. Chen, Harrison said weakly, tell me honestly, what are my chances? Chen gave him the truth. There's another patient, 34, 2 kids, higher medical priority under UNOS. Harrison closed his eyes. I understand, I've had 61 good years. If I were that 34-year-old father, I'd want the doctor to choose me. He squeezed his wife's hand. I've always believed in doing what's right, even when it costs us. Chen nodded and left, something cracking in his chest. Reyes's room was chaos barely contained. The teacher was barely conscious, monitors screaming. His wife Maria sat beside him, eyes swollen from crying. Doctor, is there news? We have a heart. Your husband gets it. Surgery within the hour. Maria collapsed in tears. Through the window, Chen saw 2 small children. Sophia trying to entertain Miguel with a coloring book, her face tight with fear beyond her years. Reyes's eyes fluttered open. My kids, he whispered. Tell them I loved teaching them to ride bikes. You'll tell them yourself, Chen said. His pager buzzed. Dr. Morrison. His office. Immediately. Morrison's office. Polished wood, leather chairs, designed to impress donors. She waited with Dr. Bradford, 2 board members, and a man in an expensive suit. James Whitmore, Harrison's attorney. Michael, we need to discuss the allocation, Morrison said. UNOS protocols are clear. Reyes has medical priority. Whitmore stepped forward. Mr. Harrison's foundation has pledged $50 million for a new transplant wing. 500 additional patients over the next decade. That's not how medicine works. Morrison's voice hardened. Michael, both patients are status 1A, both critical. Harrison is in excellent condition otherwise. His 5-year survival projection is strong, and the good he can still do. Reyes is 34 with better outcomes across every metric, Chen interrupted. We don't assign value based on bank accounts. Bradford spoke up. The board has concerns about your judgment, Michael. This isn't just about tonight. This is about this department's future. I'm chief of transplant surgery, Chen said quietly. The medical decision is mine. Reyes gets the heart. Morrison's voice dropped. Dangerous. The board is evaluating your position. Tonight's decision will weigh heavily. Chen looked at each of them. Then he thought about his father, who'd taught him principles mattered more than comfort. If you want my resignation, you can have it, but you can't have my integrity. He walked out. At 2:15 a.m., Chen scrubbed in for the surgery that would define the rest of his life. The OR was prepped to perfection, instruments laid out in precise order, every light positioned exactly where it needed to be. Sarah Kim would assist, along with Dr. Marcus Webb managing bypass and Dr. Patricia Gomez on anesthesia. The team Chen had built over years, the team he trusted with lives. David Reyes was wheeled in at 2:33 a.m., already deep under general anesthesia, his failing heart barely keeping him alive. Chen made the first incision, the median sternotomy he'd performed 1,847 times before. The sternal saw, the rib spreaders, the exposure of the pericardium. Every movement was economy, precision, years of training condensed into muscle memory. The diseased heart was worse than the scans had shown. Swollen to nearly twice its normal size, the muscle tissue damaged beyond any hope of recovery. This man would have been dead within days without intervention. Chen worked in silence, his mind perfectly focused. The bypass machine took over circulation. The diseased heart came out, lifted from the chest cavity that had held it for 34 years. The donor heart, young, strong, undamaged, was prepared. Superior vena cava, anastomosis. Inferior vena cava, aortic connection, pulmonary artery. Each suture placed with the care of someone who knows that one mistake means death. 6 hours of absolute concentration. 6 hours where nothing existed except the surgery, the patient, the work. At 8:47 a.m., Chen removed the aortic cross clamp and watched the moment that had never stopped amazing him, even after awing 848 times. The heart filled with blood, paused, quivered, beat, regular, strong, perfect, sinus rhythm, Dr. Gomez announced, her voice carrying relief. Blood pressure, 110/70. Cardiac output, excellent. He's stable, Dr. Chen. Chen stepped back from the table, pulled off his gloves, and allowed himself one moment, just one, of satisfaction. He'd done it again. Another impossible case. Another life saved. In 3 hours, David Reyes would wake up to see his wife's face. In 3 weeks, he'd go home to his children. In 4 months, he'd be back in his classroom, teaching fourth graders about fractions and photosynthesis. He'd coach his son's soccer team. He'd dance with his daughter. He'd live. Chen had saved the right life. The medically correct life. The life that UNO's protocols, medical ethics, and 23 years of training told him to save. In the recovery wing 1 floor down, William Harrison died at 9:23 a.m., his wife Catherine holding one hand, his daughter Emma holding the other, their tears falling on sheets that would be changed within the hour. The aftermath was brutal and swift. Harrison's family held a press conference within 24 hours. Emma Harrison, red-eyed and shaking, accused Chen of murder. "My father was a good man who saved thousands of lives. Dr. Chen let him die for nothing." The media descended. Cable news picked up the story. Billionaire dies while doctor saves teacher. Was it the right choice? Social media exploded. Death threats flooded Chen's email. Someone spray-painted murderer on his car. His home address was leaked online. The hospital board launched an investigation. Morrison pushed for immediate suspension, but the UNOS review was unambiguous. Chen had followed every protocol correctly. The medical ethics board found no fault. The state medical board cleared him. Legally, ethically, medically, he'd made the perfect decision. David Reyes recovered beautifully. He left the hospital after 3 weeks, his children running into his arms. He returned to teaching after 4 months. His students threw him a welcome-back party. He coached soccer again. He and Maria had another baby, a girl they named Grace. Chen thought that would be the end of it. That time would dull the edge of guilt. That Harrison's family would move on. He was wrong about all of it. 4 months later, on a gray March morning, Chen's mother called. His father had passed away peacefully in his sleep. James Chen, 74 years old, had simply not woken up. Chen flew to San Francisco that afternoon, numb. At the funeral in Chinatown, Chen delivered a eulogy. He talked about his father's work ethic, his integrity, his sacrifices. "He taught me to never compromise what's right," Chen said, his voice breaking, "even when it costs everything. He showed me what it means to have principles." 100 people came. Old customers from the laundromat, neighbors, friends from church. They all had stories about James Chen's kindness, his quiet generosity, his steady presence in their lives. While cleaning out his father's apartment the next day, surrounded by a lifetime of modest possessions, Chen found a folder in the back of a filing cabinet. It was labeled Medical Bills 2012, in his father's careful handwriting, the Chinese characters precise. Inside was a stack of hospital bills from his father's heart surgery, 7 years earlier. Chen had been in his surgical residency then, barely keeping his head above water with student loans. He'd known his father needed surgery, emergency bypass and valve replacement, but he hadn't understood the full scope of the costs. The bills totaled $340,000.
Chen stared at the number. His father had never mentioned how catastrophic the debt was. Chen had contributed what he could, maybe $30,000 over time, and assumed insurance had covered most of the rest. His father had never complained, never asked for more. But clipped to the bills was a letter on expensive letterhead. Whitmore and Associates, attorneys at law. Dear Mr. Chen, we are writing on behalf of an anonymous donor who is elected to pay the remaining balance of your medical expenses in full, $340,000. The donor wishes to remain anonymous, but wanted you to know that your courage and dignity in fighting your illness inspired them deeply. This gift is given freely, with no expectation of repayment. Your family's strength has touched many lives. With profound respect, Whitmore and Associates. The date, March 15, 2012. 7 years ago, almost to the day. Chen read the letter 3 times, his hands beginning to shake. Whitmore and Associates. James Whitmore, Harrison's attorney. That couldn't be coincidence. His father had never mentioned this. Never said a word about an anonymous donor, about the debt being paid. Chen had thought insurance and his own meager contributions had somehow been enough. He'd felt guilty for years that he couldn't help more. But someone had helped. Someone had paid $340,000 to give his father a chance at life. His father had lived 7 more years after that surgery. 7 years of phone calls and visits. 7 years of watching Chen become chief of surgery, of quiet pride in his son's achievements. 7 years of life that someone had given back to them. Chen called Whitmore and Associates the next morning. It took 20 minutes of navigating receptionists and paralegals, of explaining his father had died, of pushing past confidentiality concerns. Finally, a senior partner got on the line. Dr. Chen, I'm sorry for your loss. Your father was a remarkable man. The letter from 2012, Chen said. The anonymous donor. I need to know who it was. I'm afraid that information is confidential. My father is dead, Chen said, his voice harder than he intended. The donor paid for surgery that gave me 7 more years with him. I need to know. A long pause. Let me check our records. 5 minutes that felt like hours. Then the partner came back. The Harrison Foundation authorized the payment. Mr. William Harrison personally approved it. He'd read about your father's case in a local newspaper, a feature about immigrants working while seriously ill. He was moved by your father's courage. The foundation paid the entire balance. Mr. Harrison insisted on anonymity. He didn't want recognition, just wanted to help. Chen sat in his father's empty apartment, phone still in his hand after he'd hung up. The letter lay on the table in front of him. $340,000. 7 years of life. Thanksgivings and birthdays. His father's quiet presence at Chen's wedding. The pride in his eyes when Chen made chief of surgery. All of it. Every single moment. Paid for by William Harrison. The man Chen had let die 4 months ago. The math was simple and devastating. Harrison's gift. 7 years with his father. Chen's decision. Potentially 20 years stolen from Harrison's family. The calculation worked in Chen's favor medically, statistically, ethically. But the universe had its own accounting system, and Chen had just discovered he was massively in debt. Chen took a leave of absence the next day. He couldn't operate knowing what he knew. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Harrison's face. Every time he walked into the hospital, he felt the weight of that choice. Morrison asked for his resignation. Chen gave it. The board was happy to see him go. They hired someone more collaborative, someone who understood the bigger picture. 10 years later, Dr. Michael Chen works at a free clinic in Oakland, treating uninsured patients. He makes $68,000 a year. He lives in a small apartment. He never performed another transplant surgery. His former students call sometimes, begging him to come back, telling him he's wasting his talent. Dr. Sarah Kim is now chief of transplant surgery at UCSF. She calls every few months. We need you, Dr. Chen. You're the best surgeon I've ever known. He always says no. David Reyes sends a Christmas card every year. Photos of his kids, teenagers now, healthy and bright. Sophia is studying to be a doctor. Miguel plays varsity soccer. There's a new baby, Grace, who's 8 now. Reyes still teaches at Hoover Elementary. He coaches, volunteers, lives a good life. By every medical standard, Chen saved the right life. Reyes has given the world 2 more decades of teaching, community service, fatherhood. His students have gone to college, started careers, become teachers themselves. The ripple effects of one man's life, extending outward. But late at night, Chen still thinks about William Harrison, about the schools he would have built, the research he would have funded, the lives his foundation would have saved.
About Emma Harrison, who lost her father at 30. About Catherine Harrison, who lost her husband after 40 years. About the man who'd seen a struggling immigrant family and paid $340,000 to save a stranger's life, anonymously, expecting nothing in return. Chen knows he made the right choice. Every doctor agrees. Every ethics board agrees. Even Harrison himself, in that final conversation, seemed to agree. But knowing you made the right choice doesn't always make it hurt less. Sometimes Chen wonders what his father would say. The man who taught him never to compromise his principles. Would he be proud that Chen had followed the rules? Or would he be devastated that those rules had killed his secret savior? Chen will never know, but he knows this. Given the same choice tomorrow, with the same information, he would make the same decision, because that's what doctors do. They follow protocols. They save the patient with the best medical chance. They do the right thing by the rules they've sworn to uphold, even when the right thing destroys them, even when following every rule costs everything, even when being a perfect doctor means carrying an impossible weight. David Reyes is alive because Michael Chen followed every protocol correctly. William Harrison is dead for the same reason. And 10 years later, Chen carries both truths, understanding that he saved the right life, knowing that he killed his father's savior, and living with the fact that sometimes doing everything right still breaks you. That's the choice. That's always been the choice. And Chen still doesn't know if he'll ever forgive himself, but he knows he'd do it again.